It was a quiet Sunday evening when I found it, so quiet that the ticking of the wall clock felt louder than my own heartbeat. She had just come home for what she claimed was another exhausting overtime shift at the hospital, the kind where her scrubs carried the faint scent of disinfectant and her eyes looked heavy from hours on her feet. She dropped her bag onto the kitchen chair like she always did, kissed me absent-mindedly, and went straight to the shower. It was nothing unusual, until I reached for her bag to move it off the chair and felt something small and stiff inside the side pocket. My fingers brushed against paper, folded twice, still crisp at the edges as if it hadn't been there long. I pulled it out without thinking, expecting maybe a receipt from the cafeteria or a pharmacy slip. But the moment my eyes landed on the bold letters at the top, my stomach sank. It wasn't from the hospital. It wasn't even from anywhere near the hospital. It was a hotel receipt. My hands tightened around it, the thin paper crumpling slightly between my fingers as I read the name of a place I'd never been to, the Redwood Inn. Not a chain, not somewhere corporate put her up, but a quiet, discreet kind of place, the kind people choose when they don't want to be seen. The date was yesterday. The time, 11:42 p.m. That was the exact time she texted me, saying she was in the middle of another emergency surgery and wouldn't be able to call until her break. My breath caught in my throat, my pulse rising with each detail my eyes took in. The room number printed in neat type, the charge for 2 guests, the bar tab for 2 glasses of wine. I read it again and again, hoping it would somehow change, that I'd misread the date or misunderstood the location. But the truth was burned into the paper, like it was mocking me. I didn't know whether to storm into the bathroom and confront her, or sit down and try to breathe until my head stopped spinning. The sound of the shower running in the background felt like a cruel metronome, counting down the seconds until she would come out and see the truth already in my hands. In that moment, I knew my life was about to split into 2 parts. Before I found that slip of paper, and after, if you've ever laid next to someone who made you feel completely alone, then maybe this story isn't just mine, it's ours. And if that's true, subscribe, because stories like this deserve to be heard by those who understand. I stood in the kitchen, still holding the hotel receipt like it was radioactive, every nerve in my body screaming at me to do something, say something, throw it in her face and watch her explain. But instead, I stayed frozen, staring at the closed bathroom door. The sound of water hitting tile was steady, soothing, too soothing for a night like this. I tried to slow my breathing, but my mind was already racing ahead, building images I didn't want to see. Her in that hotel room, her laughing with someone else, her pouring wine into 2 glasses while I sat at home, trusting every word she'd sent me. I glanced at my phone on the counter and scrolled back to the text from last night. "Baby, I'm so sorry. It's another emergency surgery. I'll call you when I can." I remembered reading it in bed, half asleep, feeling a swell of sympathy that she was pulling another long night, sending her a reply with a heart emoji so she'd know I cared. I didn't know then that she might have been reading it with another man beside her. My jaw clenched. The bathroom door creaked open, steam spilling into the hallway, and she stepped out in her robe, rubbing her hair with a towel. She smiled at me like nothing in the world was wrong, like she hadn't left a crack in her armor for me to see. I held the paper in my hand, my fingers trembling. "What's this?" I asked, my voice lower than I expected, almost calm. Her eyes flicked at the receipt, and for the briefest second, I saw it, the hesitation, the flicker of panic. But then it was gone, replaced by a practiced look of confusion. "What are you talking about?" she said, reaching for it, but I pulled it back. "It's from last night," I pressed. "The night you were supposedly in surgery, until 3 a.m. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. And in that heavy silence, I realized something. Her truth wasn't going to come freely. If I wanted answers, I was going to have to push hard. I don't care about algorithms. I care about the people listening to this who are bleeding silently like I did. If you've ever held back tears just to protect someone who didn't protect you, subscribe. You don't have to do this alone anymore." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped closer, her bare feet silent on the tile, the faint scent of her shampoo mixing with the steam still clinging to her skin. Her eyes searched mine like she was looking for the safest lie to land on, but the silence between us felt like a canyon, and every second she hesitated made it wider. "It's not what you think," she finally said, her voice just above a whisper. Those words, so overused, so empty, hit me harder than if she confessed outright. "Then tell me what I'm supposed to think," I replied, my tone steady but my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. She reached for the receipt again, and I let her take it this time, curious to see how she'd handle her own evidence. She glanced at it, then at me, then back down, as if maybe the ink would fade if she stared long enough. "A friend needed a place to stay. I was just helping out," she said, the words fragile, like they could break in the air. I leaned against the counter, folded my arms, studying her. "At 2 a.m? At a hotel? While you were supposed to be in the middle of surgery?" The questions came out slow, deliberate, each one tightening the noose around whatever story she was trying to weave. She bit her lip, and I saw the flicker of frustration. Frustration that I wasn't swallowing her half-answer. Frustration that the old, trusting version of me wasn't here to make this easier for her. Her voice got firmer, almost offensive. "I was going to tell you. I just didn't want you to get the wrong idea." I almost laughed. The wrong idea? I had a printed timestamp, a location, a price, and a woman in front of me who had been saving lives in an operating room that didn't exist for her that night. But I didn't laugh. Instead, I felt a strange wave of calm. Because in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't about whether her story made sense. It wasn't about finding the exact truth. It was about the fact that she had already chosen to keep me in the dark. And people who protect your heart don't hide in shadows. Still, I let her keep talking, because sometimes silence isn't the weapon, patience is. I watched as she fumbled with her words, changing small details, trying to match her story to whatever she thought I might believe. And each time she slipped, my mind captured it, stored away, building a version of events she couldn't erase. I could feel my trust crumbling in real time, not in a dramatic crash, but in quiet, steady collapse of foundation that had been rotting for longer than I'd known. When she finally stopped talking, her eyes landed on mine, searching for some sign of forgiveness or maybe fatigue, hoping I'd just drop it because I was too tired to keep going. But I wasn't tired. I was wide awake now, and I knew this was only the surface. "Who was in that hotel room with you?" I asked, my voice sharp at this time, a question that stripped away the polite distance we'd been pretending to keep. Her lips parted, and for a moment, I thought she might actually tell me. But then, just like before, her gaze darted away, her body stiffened, and I knew, whatever truth was hiding in that room, she wasn't ready to give it to me. And that's when I made a decision. If she wouldn't hand me the truth, I'd have to go find it myself. After that conversation, I didn't sleep, not a minute. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, her shallow breathing next to me sounding more like a stranger's than my wife's. Every inhale, every exhale felt rehearsed, like she was playing a part in a scene I hadn't been invited to. My mind kept circling back to that receipt, the way her fingers had trembled just slightly when she held it, the way her eyes avoided mine when the questions got too specific. I realized I'd been living with a version of her that was carefully curated, edited down to what she thought I needed to see. When the first gray light of morning slipped through the curtains, I was already up. I moved quietly, deliberately not to wake her. I grabbed her bag, the same one she always took to work, the same one I'd never dared to look through before. My hands shook, not because I was afraid of being caught, but because I was terrified of what I might find. There's a strange kind of dread that comes when you're looking for proof you don't actually want to see, and I felt it in every muscle. I started with the outer pockets, stethoscope, a few pens, some loose change. Then deeper inside, a folded set of scrubs, still smelling faintly of antiseptic. And then wedged between her notebook and a worn makeup pouch, I found her phone charger and a crumpled envelope. Inside were not one but 2 receipts, both from the same hotel, both dated within the last month. The first was for the night she claimed she was assisting in a complicated emergency surgery. The second, the night she told me she was covering for a sick colleague. My pulse was pounding in my ears now. I set the receipts on the kitchen table, lined them up side by side like pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to solve. But I wasn't done. I powered up her tablet, something she rarely used at home, but always brought with her. No password change, a small relief, or maybe a trap. Scrolling through her gallery, I didn't see anything at first, mostly hospital shots, a few selfies, the kind of sterile snapshots she'd post to her work profile. But then I checked the hidden folder, and there it was, a photo, blurry, low light, taken from across a hotel room. A man's arm resting on the bed, a glass of wine on the nightstand. No face, but the details were enough to make my stomach twist. The watch on his wrist wasn't mine. The suit jacket draped over the chair wasn't mine. And the way the sheets were pulled halfway down wasn't something you'd see in a place meant just for sleeping. My first instinct was to confront her immediately. But something in me said no, not yet, because I realized this wasn't just about one night, one lie. This was a pattern, and patterns don't end because you catch them once. I needed to know how deep it went. How many nights had she been saving lives while I was home, waiting for her? How many times had she smiled at me with someone else's scent still on her skin? I closed the tablet, slid it back exactly where I'd found it, and poured myself a cup of coffee I didn't even taste. My hands were steady now, because I knew my next move wouldn't be a conversation. It would be an investigation. The coffee had long gone cold in my hands, but I didn't notice. My mind was already moving faster than my heartbeat, and that was saying something. If there was one thing I had learned in my years with her, it was that my wife was meticulous. She didn't make careless mistakes. So if I'd found those hotel receipts and that photo, then there was more, a lot more. The trick was finding it without tipping her off. I wasn't just looking for answers. I was building a case. Because now I knew. If I confronted her too soon, she'd twist the story, play the part, maybe even shed the tears that once fooled me. But this time, I wanted the true strip bare. The first step was a GPS. Most people forget that their phones track everywhere they go, but I didn't. I'd helped her set up her location services years ago, so she could feel safe coming home late from the hospital. I logged into our shared account from my laptop, my fingers steady, my jaw tight. The map lit up with a constellation of red dots, everywhere she'd been in the past month. My stomach sank. The hospital wasn't even the most frequent location. The top spot? The exact same hotel from the receipt. Over and over. Different days. Different times. Always late at night. I zoomed in on one particular night. She'd told me she was assisting in a double bypass. Said she'd be unreachable for hours. But the GPS showed her leaving the hospital after only 30 minutes and driving straight across town. Not to the hotel. Not right away. First, a small restaurant tucked away on a quiet street. I knew the place. Intimate, dimly lit. The kind of place where conversations are whispered and eyes wander only to the person across the table. She was there for almost 2 hours. Then the signal moved to the hotel. Stayed there until 3:47 a.m. And then back home, just in time to slip into bed and kiss me good morning. I sat there staring at the timeline, the little breadcrumb trail of betrayal glowing on the screen, and I realized this wasn't just about physical cheating. This was a double life. She wasn't clocking extra hours to help patients. She was clocking them to keep me in the dark. And for the first time, the anger I'd been keeping at bay started to rise. Not the kind of anger that explodes. The kind that calcifies. The kind that decides, quietly but absolutely, that something is going to end. But I wasn't done. I needed to see it for myself. To know beyond any shadow of a doubt. I took out a small notepad and began marking dates, times, patterns. If she said she was working late on a Thursday, chances were I'd find her at that same restaurant or hotel. If she claimed a colleague was sick, I could cross-check it with her location history. The patterns were there. Clear. Predictable. And that made her next, over time, shift my target. I leaned back in my chair, the room still dark except for the pale glow of the laptop, and made a decision that sent a strange calm through me. I would follow her. Not confront. Not accuse. Just watch. Watch the person I had vowed to love for life walk straight into the arms of someone else. And when the moment came, I wouldn't say a word. I'd let the evidence speak for itself. The night she was scheduled for overtime arrived with an almost cruel sense of inevitability. I didn't have to ask her twice that morning about her shift. She volunteered the information with the kind of casual tone someone uses when they've already rehearsed a lie. "It's going to be a late one tonight," she said while tying her hair back into that perfect bun she always wore to the hospital. "Don't wait up." She kissed my cheek, and I felt her hand linger on my shoulder just a second longer than necessary, like a magician distracting you before the trick. I smiled, told her to take care, and watched her drive away, knowing I'd be seeing her again sooner than she thought. I started my preparation early. Phone fully charged. Camera in the passenger seat. A thermos of coffee. I'd even adjusted my seat so I could recline just enough to disappear into the shadows if she happened to look around. The plan was simple. I'd follow at a distance, watch where she went, and document every step. It wasn't about confronting her anymore. It was about seeing the truth unfold with my own eyes, without filters, without excuses. By 7:15 p.m., I was parked a block away from the hospital entrance, engine off, lights out. The air was cool, the kind that makes you feel every slow second pass like a weight on your chest. I kept glancing at the entrance, waiting for that familiar silhouette. At 7:34 p.m., she appeared. Hair still in a bun, scrubs neatly pressed, white coat hanging perfectly from her shoulders. She moved quickly, not like someone preparing for a grueling overnight shift, but like someone late for a different kind of appointment. She didn't go inside. That's what caught me first. Instead, she crossed the lot to her car, looking over her shoulder once, just once, before unlocking it and sliding in. My heart started pounding in a way that made me grip the steering wheel harder. I waited a full 30 seconds before pulling out behind her, keeping 2 cars between us as she headed toward the city. The first stop was the same restaurant I'd seen on the GPS logs. I parked far enough away to blend in, but with a clear line of sight to the entrance. She didn't get out alone. He was already waiting at the door, a tall man with broad shoulders, dressed in dark jeans and a fitted shirt. I couldn't see his face clearly from where I sat, but I didn't need to. The way she smiled at him told me everything. It wasn't a polite, professional smile she gave patients or colleagues. This was softer, warmer, the kind of smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. They went inside, and I stayed put, my camera resting in my lap like a loaded weapon. Through the restaurant's front windows, I could see them leaning toward each other across the table, hands brushing occasionally. She laughed at something he said, a full, unguarded laugh I'd once thought was mine alone to hear. I caught myself wondering what he had said, what story or joke had been worth that kind of reaction. And then it hit me. I was sitting in a car, watching the woman I loved give pieces of herself to someone else, and there wasn't a single thing I could do to stop it without shattering the life I'd built. After nearly 2 hours, they left. No hesitation, no glances over the shoulder. They walked side by side to his car, parked just behind hers, and spoke briefly before both getting in. This time, she followed him. And me, I followed them both. The drive was short, predictable, straight to the same hotel. She pulled into the lot like it was muscle memory, like she'd done 100 times before. I didn't get out. I didn't need to. The camera clicked quietly in my hands, framing her in the soft glow of the parking lot lights as she stepped out, met him in his car, and walked with him toward the entrance. Side by side. No rush. No fear. Just comfort. Familiarity. And as the door closed behind them, I sat there in my car in the dark, with the weight of a truth I'd suspected but never truly grasped until that moment. The kind of truth that changes you, not with a sudden explosion, but with a quiet, irreversible fracture. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, the thermos of coffee untouched, my hands cold around the steering wheel, and I knew, the next time she looked me in the eyes, I'd see this moment reflected back at me, and she'd know that I knew if this sounds like your life, stop pretending you're fine. Stop hiding it like I did. Subscribe, not for me, but for every person who thought they were crazy, until the truth finally shattered them. You're safe here. We see you. Her eyes softened, not with apology, but with something worse. Pity. You worked so hard to build this perfect little world in your head, she said quietly. But people change. I changed. She spoke as if it was inevitable, like weather shifting or leaves falling in autumn. She didn't even try to justify it. Didn't plead for understanding. It was almost like she was telling me a sad truth about the universe and expecting me to nod along. I asked her if he was worth it. Worth the home we'd built, the nights we'd held each other after her grueling shifts, the sacrifices we'd made when money was tight. She didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, she looked past me, toward the flickering candle on the table, and said, "He makes me feel alive in a way I didn't know I was missing." Those words didn't just land. They carved into me. Every late night she claimed was to the hospital. Every extra shift, I'm too tired, suddenly fit into a new, uglier picture. I realized in that moment that the woman I married wasn't sitting across from me anymore. She was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. And yet, I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence stretch until it became unbearable, and said the only thing that felt right. Then go feel alive. Somewhere else. She blinked, like she didn't expect me to let go so easily. But this wasn't easy. This was me choosing self-respect over the hollow comfort of keeping her. As she stood, gathering her things without a word, I knew this wasn't just the end of our marriage. It was the end of the man who had been willing to ignore his instincts for love. The door closed behind her with finality that left the house feeling bigger, emptier, and somehow lighter. And in that stillness, I understood that sometimes the greatest act of love you can give yourself is the courage to let someone walk away you've come this far. That means something. You felt this. You lived it. Maybe not this exact story, but your own version of it. So if you're still here, still breathing under the weight of something they'll never apologize for, hit subscribe. Because no one should walk through this kind of betrayal alone. And if no one else says it, I will. I'm glad you're still here.